Hello there. My name is Hamish Hall of WSP Consulting Engineers, and we're working on behalf of South Northamptonshire Council, looking to try and reduce the risk of flooding to King's Sutton. On the 24th of May 2017, we held a very thought-provoking and well-attended consultation event in the village hall. And as a result of this consultation, we in the council thought it would be worthwhile to make a recording of parts of the presentation given, so that anybody who couldn't come or wanted to see a bit more information will be able to look at this YouTube video. As many of you will know, King's Sutton has some extreme flooding problems, and there have been many floods over the last century. To make sure we really understand the flooding, we've obtained a numerical flooding model from the Environment Agency and rerun it specifically for King's Sutton. So on the left here, you will see the canal and the River Cherwell. Along here, the low-lying area of Wales Street in King's Sutton and the Black Brook. This simulates a 1 in 100 year flood with some allowance for increases in rainfall due to climate change. And as this model runs through time, you can see that we are predicting quite significant flooding around the Wales Street area, affecting many properties. Now, it's really important to note that the flood isn't actually coming from the Black Brook. It's coming from the River Cherwell. It's a large river with a very big catchment. And as the water levels rise, they flow up underneath the railway, close to King's Sutton's train station, and back up here, causing this quite significant flood risk. This modelling is important because it allows us to work out, as you can see, where the flood goes, but it also gives us the information we need to undertake the design to try and reduce the risk. And it's this 1 in 100 year event with climate change that we're trying to protect against. It won't stop the flooding from very, very extreme events, but hopefully it will significantly reduce the current risk, with properties at King's Sutton currently being flooded relatively frequently, as low as a 1 in 20 year event. The modelling has shown us that there are many properties at risk, potentially in the lower lying parts of the village, and it's this area that we're trying to put a scheme in to reduce risk. The number of properties flooded directly affects the money that we can gain from the government, and we're trying to achieve a positive benefit cost ratio, demonstrating the money that we'll be saving to the nation by protecting properties from flooding. I'll briefly take you through how this scheme will work. River Cherwell here, and we've got the Black Brook and its tributary flowing down. What we're going to do is we're going to put a bund, or we're going to raise the ground along this red line to try and stop water from the River Cherwell flooding back in and affecting the town. Now, in order to do this and still keep the Black Brook flowing, we're going to have to put some flow control structures on the upstream side, which is here, and on the downstream side here. That will allow, hopefully, this flood to still continue, because we can't interrupt major floods because it will create risk elsewhere, but stop the water coming into King's Sutton. I'll just show you how that works. This is the upstream flow control structure and the downstream one. So most of the time the water will flow normally through a culvert here underneath a bridge and through a new structure downstream, just upstream of the railway. When a large flood comes, we're going to try and keep the water out in this central section with the properties protected behind Wales Street. This means we must stop the water flowing in through this control structure and in through here. On the downstream one, it's relatively straightforward. With the flood bundle wall, we put what's called a flap, FLAP valve or non-return valve, like this one here, to stop water coming up. On the upstream control structure, which will be underneath a new footbridge, we need to let normal flows through, but when a big flood comes, we need that valve or structure to close. And here's an example of a simple mechanized way of closing a structure when flood levels get high. Here's a float. As water levels rise, it gently closes the culvert opening, stopping water flowing in here. That means the flood can carry on from the Cherwell, but we're reducing flood risk to Whale Street. Now, because we're putting in flow control structures here and here, if they fail because there's some debris or garden material or trees that have floated down, get stuck in them, they're not going to operate, which means all that investment will be worthless. So we're also going to have to put in some form of screen to stop debris blocking those culverts and footbridge. And these are what we call trash screens. They also they stop debris getting in the way, but they also need maintenance. A key part of this scheme is to make sure that not only can we build a scheme now, but also that we can put in place the maintenance arrangements to keep the screens, the bund and the other structures safe for at least 100 years. We haven't finished the design exercise at the moment, and the purpose of our current work is to get the funding necessary to build it. But at the moment, our scheme costs are around £600,000 to £800,000, and we're looking towards gaining a bit more funding to top up the already some £600,000 that the scheme has got. These numbers here are subject to change, and as we proceed through the next few months, we hope to clarify them and increase the number so that we can achieve a benefit cost ratio greater than 1, i.e. there is benefit for the nation to protect King Sutton. So what's next? We are, over the next 2 months, be finalising the out design, specifically taking feedback from the consultation that we held in on the 24th of May. We'll then be putting a business case together to obtain the funding. That goes to the Environment Agency, who are very supportive of this scheme. We then need to get the formal agreement of the properties directly affected, particularly the private landowners, where we'll need to be putting these structures. Because of the scale of the scheme, we must submit for a planning application, and we're able to work on a resubmission of a previous planning application for this project. The works will then be tendered with a competent and suitable contractor. Following this, we'll need to gain some environmental permits to ensure that both the temporary works and the permanent works are acceptable to the Environment Agency and several other people who have an interest in how we look after and manage our watercourses. And with a fair wind and the funding coming through, we hope to be able to start construction sometime after spring 2018. Now, it's really important that I'll let you know that this scheme isn't guaranteed to proceed. As you'll see up here, there are a number of steps that we must go through, and each of these steps requires other people to accept the scheme, put funding forward, and agree to how it's going to be maintained. And with the help of the local authority, the parish council, the Environment Agency, and work from ourselves, we hope to be able to get all parties in agreement to deliver what is a really important flood alleviation scheme to King Sutton. Irrespective of how this goes forward, I'd also like to point out that the Environment Agency has got an automated flood warning system. And there's a website link here where anyone, irrespective of where you live in England, can sign up for a flood warning, which provides you automated telephone messages in the event of a potential flood risk to the area where you live. Finally, I'd like to show you a fly-through of what the scheme looks like. This fly-through is a visualization of what the scheme could look like. It was prepared before the consultation, and we know that some changes will be made to take account of some of the questions and requests that people have put to us on the 24th of May. But I'll press play now and briefly talk you through it. Here we are looking north, coming along the railway line with the River Cherwell on our left, coming into Sutton on our right. We're now looking at the Black Brook and the Bog Spring, which is this little circle here, moving along the Black Brook and the new development that's recently been constructed here. This is a pumping station. The modelling that I showed you earlier in this has now been superimposed on this model, ignoring the big flood that's on this side. And this shows approximately the extent of the flooding that we've modelled. Obviously these are representations of the buildings and the roads, but you can see that we have some quite significant flood risk here. And it's this that we're trying to stop. Finally, we show what the scheme will look like with the new flood bund and flow control structures at the downstream and upstream extent of the scheme. Here is our flood bund with access points for people to be able to drive tractors and mowers across. Our downstream flood control structure that's stopping water flowing up from the Black Brook. And our upstream control structure that's stopping water flowing in under extreme conditions, but will allow water to flow normally. I should say that the public footpath along here will be maintained pretty much along its current path, and that we will make the slopes to get up on to this flood bund and onto a raised footbridge across here as easy as possible, so that we still make it accessible. So that gives you a flavour of the scheme that we're proposing. As I said, the alignments haven't been finalised, and we're still looking at ways in which we can improve the scheme and reduce how much it costs, both to build and to maintain. So I will just close by saying thank you for watching, and if you have any comments, please email us at the following email address: ksfloodscheme@southnorthants.gov.uk. Thank you.